It's easy to imagine the medieval world as a series of isolated kingdoms, each tucked away behind castle walls, completely unaware of what lay beyond the next forest or mountain range. But that picture is wonderfully, gloriously wrong. The truth is far more exciting. Medieval people were connected by a vast and intricate network of trade routes that stretched for thousands of miles. Think of it like a great web with threads of silk, spice, and gold crisscrossing continents. These connections were not just about buying and selling goods. They were conduits for ideas, stories, and new ways of seeing the world. A merchant setting out from Venice might end his journey in the bustling markets of Alexandria, bringing back not just pepper, but also tales of distant lands. These weren't simple journeys. They were epic undertakings that required immense courage and determination. Caravans of camels laden with precious cargo would trek for months across the punishing sands of the Sahara or the rugged terrain of Central Asia. This was the famous Silk Road, a name that conjures images of adventure and immense wealth. Similarly, brave sailors navigated the Indian Ocean, their wooden ships guided by the stars and the seasonal monsoon winds. They connected the ports of East Africa, Arabia, India, and even distant China. These routes were the arteries of the medieval world, pumping not blood, but commerce and culture across the globe, linking people who would never meet face to face. The goods they carried were the stuff of dreams for many in Europe. Imagine the sheer luxury of silk, a fabric so light and shimmering it was once thought to be grown on trees. Or consider the power of spices like cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Today we sprinkle them on our food without a second thought, but in medieval times they were worth more than their weight in gold. They were used not just to flavor bland food, but also as medicine, incense, and a powerful symbol of status. To have spices in your kitchen was to announce to the world that you were wealthy, sophisticated, and connected to the farthest corners of the known world. This constant movement of people and products created vibrant, multicultural hubs of activity. Cities like Venice, Constantinople, and Baghdad became cosmopolitan melting pots where merchants, scholars, and artisans from different backgrounds mingled. In these bustling urban centers, a Christian craftsman from France might find himself working alongside a Muslim scholar from Persia or a Jewish trader from Cairo. They exchanged more than just coins. They exchanged languages, technologies, and artistic traditions. It was in these dynamic, interconnected cities that the seeds of a new kind of artistry were sown, an artistry that would be shaped by the incredible richness of a newly connected world. For an artist, the materials you work with define what you can create. The arrival of new goods through global trade was, therefore, nothing short of a revolution. It handed medieval artisans a palette of colors and textures they had never seen before. Suddenly, their world of artistic possibility expanded in the most brilliant ways. Before these trade routes flourished, European painters often had to rely on a limited range of pigments made from local minerals and plants. These were effective, certainly, but the new imports offered an entirely new level of vibrancy and permanence. The world was about to get a lot more colorful, and art would be the primary beneficiary of this dazzling transformation. Consider the stunning color blue. For centuries, the most common blue pigment in Europe was made from the woad plant, which produced a decent but somewhat muted shade. Then, from the mines of Afghanistan, came lapis lazuli. This deep, rich blue stone was transported thousands of miles along the Silk Road, ground into an incredibly fine powder, and transformed into the pigment known as ultramarine. The name itself means from over the sea. It was extraordinarily expensive, a luxury reserved for the most important commissions. When you see a medieval painting of the Virgin Mary, her robes are almost always painted in this magnificent celestial blue, a color that signified her holiness and the patron's immense wealth. It wasn't just about color. New materials transformed the very objects people created. Think of ivory. In Northern Europe, artists had long carved walrus tusks, but African ivory brought across the Sahara by caravan was different. It was larger, smoother, and had a creamier, more consistent texture that was perfect for intricate carving. Craftsmen in Paris and other artistic centers began creating exquisite devotional objects from this imported material. Media Group, detailed medieval ivory devotional objects, Paris Medieval Art Museum display of ivory carvings at stock, distribute equally small statues, delicate religious panels and ornate containers. The material itself, exotic and pure, added a layer of spiritual significance to the artworks, connecting the faithful in Europe to a mysterious and distant Africa. Gold, too, played a crucial role, not just as currency but as an artistic medium. Much of the gold used in Europe during this period came from West Africa, transported north to the Mediterranean coast. This African gold was then beaten into incredibly thin sheets known as gold leaf. Artists used it to create shimmering divine backgrounds in religious paintings and to illuminate the pages of sacred manuscripts. The light reflecting off the gold surface was meant to evoke the presence of God. It made the artwork feel otherworldly, as if it were a window into heaven itself. This sacred glow, so central to medieval art, was made possible by the labor of miners and traders thousands of miles away. The flow of goods was always accompanied by a flow of ideas. As new materials arrived, so too did new designs, patterns, and artistic techniques. Medieval artists were not passive recipients. They were curious and clever innovators. They looked at the intricate geometric patterns on an Islamic ceramic tile, the flowing dragons on a piece of Chinese silk, or the stylized animals on a Persian metalwork bowl, and they were inspired. They didn't simply copy what they saw. Instead, they took these foreign elements and wove them into their own established traditions, creating a fascinating and beautiful artistic hybrid. It was a visual conversation between cultures. We can see this fusion happening very clearly in textiles. The weavers of Lucca and Venice in Italy became famous for producing luxurious silks. But if you look closely at their designs, you will find patterns that are unmistakably Eastern in origin. They incorporated stylized animals like lions and eagles, often arranged symmetrically inside roundels, a motif borrowed directly from Byzantine and Sasanian Persian textiles. They also adopted fantastical creatures like griffins and phoenixes, beasts that had traveled in spirit along the Silk Road. An Italian noblewoman wearing a gown made from this silk was cloaking herself in a design that told a story of long-distance trade and cultural mingling, a true testament to her sophisticated, worldly tastes. Architecture also tells this story of cultural blending. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo, Sicily, is a breathtaking example. Built in the 12th century, it is a glorious mix of different artistic styles. The overall structure is Norman. The floor plan is that of a Western basilica, but when you look up, you are met with something extraordinary. The ceiling is covered in magnificent muqarnas, a type of honeycomb vaulting that is a hallmark of Islamic architecture. The walls are adorned with stunning Byzantine mosaics, gleaming with gold and depicting Christian saints. Here, in one sacred space, the artistic traditions of Normandy, Byzantium, and the Islamic world come together in perfect, stunning harmony. Even everyday objects reveal this wonderful mixing of styles. Consider the ceramics produced in Spain, particularly in cities like Valencia. For centuries, Spain was under Islamic rule, and its potters perfected a technique known as lusterware, which gives pottery a shimmering metallic sheen. After Christian kingdoms reconquered the region, the local Muslim artisans continued to produce their sought-after pottery. They simply adapted their designs to suit their new Christian patrons. You might find a platter decorated with Arabic calligraphy right next to another one featuring a Christian coat of arms, all made in the same workshop. This was not a clash of civilizations. It was a creative and pragmatic collaboration. The story of medieval art is ultimately a story of connection. It teaches us that no culture develops in a vacuum. The incredible beauty and complexity we admire in the cathedrals, manuscripts, and artifacts of the Middle Ages are a direct result of people being open to new things. When a painter in Florence used a pigment from Afghanistan, or a weaver in Italy copied a pattern from Persia, They were participating in a global exchange that made their own work richer, deeper, and more interesting. This process of borrowing and blending didn't dilute their local traditions. On the contrary, it infused them with new life and expanded their creative horizons. This legacy of cultural exchange is visible everywhere you look in medieval art, if you know where to find it. The pointed arches that define Gothic cathedrals, for example, were likely inspired by architectural forms seen in the Islamic world. The intricate, swirling vine patterns carved into the stone columns of a French church might echo the arabesques found on a metal bowl from Syria. These influences are not always obvious, but they form a hidden layer of meaning, a testament to a world that was far more interconnected than we often give it credit for. Each piece of art becomes a map, tracing the journeys of materials and ideas across the globe. This blending of cultures is what gave medieval art its dynamic and evolving character. Think of Venice, a city built on trade. Its most famous landmark, St. Mark's Basilica, is a treasure trove of global influences. Its domes are unmistakably Byzantine, its arches have an Islamic flair, and the treasures inside include gilded mosaics, marble columns, and precious objects looted from Constantinople. The building is a magnificent jumble of styles, a physical embodiment of Venice's role as a bridge between East and West. It proudly declares that its identity and its beauty are built from the best that the world has to offer, a powerful statement in stone and gold. Ultimately, the great lesson from this period is a timeless one. Art flourishes when cultures meet. When artists are exposed to different ways of thinking, new materials, and unfamiliar aesthetics, they are pushed to innovate and create something new. The medieval world, with its sprawling trade routes and bustling markets, provided the perfect environment for this kind of creative fusion. The resulting artworks are not just beautiful objects. They are historical documents that bear witness to a shared human history of curiosity, exchange, and collaboration. They remind us that the most beautiful things are often created when we open our doors to the world.